even in this mechanism. So, before we start, I'll just summarize the previous paragraph which we read yesterday, and then we will start. Okay. All right. So, what he said in the previous paragraph is like this. It must be remembered. Good morning, Kiran.
Good morning, Gangada.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm reading the summary of the previous paragraph so that you get the context. Yeah, the context. Okay. It must be remembered that when we speak of focusing on a detail and forgetting the rest, it is not really an oblivion. That means forgetting the things that we have put in the background, but only a putting away out of the vision range, out of our eyesight. Okay? It is there in the background. Into the periphery, periphery is the outer circle, where the forgotten waits to be recovered once again. Okay? But in the physical world, the forgotten can be recovered very easily, but in the spiritual field, that which is forgotten has to be recovered with great difficulty, and that is the yoga. Okay, so it is only a relegation, a putting away, a change of position from the center to the outer circumference of our attention, not an abolition or an annulment. So ignorance is, this is exactly what ignorance is. You are concentrating on something and you are putting away the other things that you know into the background. Then, now again, let us note that just as ignorance is a focusing on details and relegating the other unwanted minutiae, minor details, to the outer ranges of our attention, exactly in the same way, the recovery of knowledge, the whole, and putting away of the details is done by reverse action. Now you have to forget the details and concentrate on the whole. And what is that whole? The divine. And how do you do that? By recovery, by constantly thinking of the divine and not bothering too much about the details of the physical world. Okay? This is a normal way. But in Shrivas Yoga, you have to continue to do work in the world, but constant with remembrance, and that's the most powerful method. Okay, so, and putting away the details is done by reverse action. This is done by concentrating on the whole and forgetting the many. When we say whole, we have to make an image, a representation. I will take the whole to be mother's photograph or Sri photograph. Or if you are not a follower of Sri or mother, I'll concentrate on Om. Okay? Or I'll concentrate on the swasti. Or I'll concentrate on one dot, like the tantrics do. The tantrics do that. It's called Taratak. Taratak. Okay? Just one dot on a white sheet of paper and you concentrate on that. Don't let the mind go here and there. Okay, that's it. So this is what Shendra is saying. Okay? Now again, let us note that as ignorance is a focusing on details and relegating the other unwanted minutiae to the outer ranges of our attention, exactly in the same way, the recovery of knowledge, the whole putting away of the details, the whole and the putting away of the details, is done by reverse action. This is done by concentrating on the whole and forgetting the many, by focusing on the self, the superconscious, or the psychic being. Just 1 second. Yeah. By concentrating by concentrating on the self or the psychic intraconscious, these two are the first and second movements. In the third movement, the first movement is psychic, second movement is the self, and third movement, in the third movement, it is possible to concentrate on the higher ranges of consciousness by quieting the lower mental movements, and then by the descent of the higher into the lower, transform the lower into the higher. In other words, you are living in the physical world, but everything now, the values are changing entirely. Okay? Man can then have a harmony of the one and the many, spirit and matter. This is what the integral yoga can achieve and wants to achieve. This is what I said in the previous one. I've added a few words like what the integral yoga is wanting to do. That's okay. Now I read each sentence of the one that we read yesterday, but still, okay. But still, even if this is the mechanism of the ignorance, okay, the mechanism of the ignorance, a forgetting of the whole and concentrating on the details. That's how he is defining ignorance. It may be asked whether it does not remain. One second. It may be asked whether it does not remain a mystery how the all-conscient could, though in only a partial action of his conscious energy, succeed in arriving at even the superficial ignorance and inconscience. Okay, you have not forgotten everything, but how is it that it is so difficult to recover what you have done? Okay, that's what he's asking. All conscious could, though in a very partial action of his conscious energy, succeed in arriving at even the superficial ignorance and inconscience. How could the ignorance become so telling? How can it become so important? Even if it was so, it would be worthwhile to fix the exact action of this mystery, its nature, its limits, so that we may not be appalled by it and misled from the real purpose it serves and the opportunity it gives. So what Siddhartha is saying, let us look at the mechanism, how this happens. Because if we are ignorant and you may feel depressed, okay? You may feel quite depressed and you may feel, my God, I am so limited. How can I go to the higher level? So if you know the mechanism, then your depression can be much less because you know the possibility of rising to the higher level is there. Okay, so even if it is so, it will be worthwhile to fix the exact action of this mystery, its nature, its limits. What is the process of ignorance? That's what it asking. So that we may not be appalled by it and misled from the real purpose it serves and the opportunity it gives. In other words, you mustn't think that the plunge into the ignorance is by chance and it's a tragedy. You should not think like that. There is a purpose to it. And what is the purpose? Let us have a look. You see. Okay? And the opportunity it gives. What is the opportunity? To improve yourself through facing difficulties. That's your opportunity being given to you. But the mystery is a fiction of the dividing intellect, which, because it finds or creates a logical opposition between the two concepts. What are the two concepts? The one and the many, spirit and matter. We make a logical opposition between these because of our limited mind. Thinks there is a real opposition of the two facts, knowledge and ignorance, observed, and therefore an impossibility of coexistence and unity between them. So if you are in the mental consciousness, you will think that they are opposites and it's impossible to have a harmony between them. If you are in the normal mental consciousness. He is using the word dividing intellect. The dividing intellect says that knowledge and ignorance are opposites. Spirit and matter are opposites. One and the many are opposites. But it's a dividing mind that is doing that. If you go to a level of consciousness where there is no dividing intellect, okay, then you can look at it synthetically. Okay. Then you realize that this is it's not the mystery at all. It is not true that they are not compatible. They are very compatible. Knowledge and ignorance are not opposites. The mystery of the fiction of the dividing intellect, which, because it finds or creates a logical opposition between two concepts, thinks there is a real opposition of the two facts observed, and therefore an impossibility of coexistence and unity between them. Sri Aurobindo, of course, does not agree with that because he says that you can go far beyond your normal dividing mind. The dividing mind is your normal mind. Okay? This ignorance is, as we have seen, really a power of the knowledge to limit itself, okay? To concentrate itself on the work in hand, an exclusive concentration in practice, which does not prevent the full existence and working of the whole conscious being behind, but working in the conditions chosen. Chosen, you have chosen to come down here and self-imposed on the nature. You yourself have decided to come down. You have forgotten that you have decided to come down. The other day I gave you an image that if you are going through a forest, your captain or your friend tells you there is a very interesting adventure and we have to go through this forest. Okay? So you say, oh, yes, we are very enthusiastic. We say, yes, we'll do that. This is what the soul does at the highest level. And says, yes, I want to undergo this experiment and this adventure. And then you come down. And then you start crossing the forest, and then you see that the problems are infinite. There are thorns everywhere. There is no path. There are wild animals. Okay? There is suffering in the world. There is perversion. There is ignorance. There is no light. You are making mistakes. And then you have forgotten that you have taken the decision to face the adventure. And then you start complaining. Oh, there is this. Oh, there is that. There is the condition of man. Okay? But if you have not, then when the soul awakes sufficiently, okay, then you realize that, hey, I have forgotten that I had taken this adventure by my own decision. Okay? You see, that's what Sadhguru is saying. Okay? But working in the conditions chosen, you yourself have chosen to come down to the physical world and face ignorance and self-imposed on the nature. Okay? You have yourself decided to do that. Now, all conscious self-limitation is a power for its special purpose, not a weakness. You have come down here, it's not a weakness. Your soul is full of power, but it is forgotten. When it comes down, the light has gone out and you are facing many, many challenges because you have covered yourself up with the thick veils of matter, life and mind. All concentration is a force of conscious being, not a disability. And that's very obvious because at our level, when you want to concentrate on something, nobody will say it's a weakness, it's a capacity. Okay? It's the same in the spiritual field. Okay? All concentration is a force of conscious being, not a disability. It is true that while the supermind is capable of an integral, comprehensive, multiple, infinite self-concentration, this is dividing and limited. What is this? The lower. Okay? The lower planes, even the spiritual planes. This is dividing and limited. Whereas in the supermind, there is no division and there is no limitation. It is true also that it creates perverse as well as partial, and insofar false or only half true values of things. That's the problem. If it is only a question of forgetting, you wouldn't be bothered. But when you've forgotten, there is perversion that comes in, there is ignorance that comes in, there is suffering that comes in, and all these things are you have to face. And now, normally, we lose courage. Okay? But you have to get up and continue. Remember always that you have undertaken the adventure yourself. Creates powers as well as partial. And insofar, false and only half true value of things. But we have seen the object of the limitation and of this partiality of knowledge. There is a purpose in this adventure. What is that? And the object being admitted, he is not telling you what it is yet. The power to fulfill must be admitted also in the absolute force. So once you realize that you have yourself taken the decision to face this adventure, Okay, adventure of going from darkness to light. Okay, then you realize that since I myself decided, I had the power also to do it. This realizing of the power to do it is faith. Okay? You must have faith that you can do it. Okay? This power of self-limitation for a particular working, instead of being incompatible with the absolute conscious force of the being, is precisely one of the powers we should expect to exist among the manifold energies of the infinite. So even when you are at the lower level, manifold, okay, you are at the lower level and your power may be less, but you know that you can get that power back. So, and this translates very easily in practical life also. Nowadays, all even sporting teams, they have confidence that you can win. Okay? And it's true in a cricket match or a football match, but it's also true in the spiritual world that you can win. Okay? That's what you say. Okay? So, let's go to the. He has not yet told you the purpose very clearly. What is the purpose? But we have discussed it already. It's an adventure. The adventure of consciousness to face this game of coming down to light into darkness and going into the light. It's a long journey, a journey of many, many lives. Okay, let's read the next one. The absolute is not really limited. So, if Archanadi is in a condition to read, she can read. But if she can't, Yasmin can. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The absolute is not really limited. Is my voice echoing?
Now it's okay. That blue line is there. Yeah.
The absolute is not really limited by putting forth in itself a cosmos of relations. It is the natural play of its absolute being, consciousness, force, self-delight. The infinite is not limited by building up in itself an infinite series of interplaying finite phenomena. Rather, it is its natural self-expression. One is not limited by its capacity for multiplicity, in which it enjoys variously its own being. Rather, that is part of the true description of an infinite, as opposed to a rigid, finite, and conceptual unity. So too the ignorance, considered as a power of manifoldly self-absorbed and self-limiting concentration of the conscious being, is a natural capacity of variation in his self-conscious knowledge, one of the possible poises of relation of the absolute in its manifestation, of the infinite in its series of finite workings, of the one in its self-employment in the many. The power by self-absorption is to become unaware of the world, which yet at the same time continues in the being, is one extreme of this capacity of consciousness. The power of absorption in the cosmic workings to become ignorant of the self, which all the time is carrying on those workings, is the reverse extreme. But neither really limits the integral self-aware existence of Sachidanand, which is superior to these apparent oppositions. Even in their opposition, they help to express and manifest the ineffable.
Yeah. Okay. This is the last paragraph of the chapter. So, and then he will come to the next one. So, he is telling you again and again that it's a self-imposed condition. It is not ignorance. It is not something fundamental. It is something that you have decided yourself. It is temporary. Okay. Even when the divine comes down, and that's why there are three levels. Okay. Level 1 is the supermind at the highest level. When it comes down to the cosmos, it is the cosmic, universal, and even in the lowest level is the individual. The divine takes all these. He is not forgotten himself in the lower. There is no opposition between spirit and matter. He is there everywhere. At the highest level, he is openly available. At the cosmos level, he is partially available. And in the Lowest, he is hidden himself altogether, but he is available there. But he is hidden himself in the lowest. He is there, but hidden. His presence is there even in the atom. But it's a presence. You have to, and you can see that presence only when you go to the highest. That's the funny part. When you are in the lower, you can't see his presence. Okay, when your consciousness rises higher and higher, then you can see his presence. So, that's what basically is saying in the paragraph. The absolute is not really limited. What is meant by the absolute, by the way? The Satchidananda, which is even above the supermind. Okay, the absolute is something which you cannot describe at all. Absolutely featureless and impossible to speak about. That's the absolute. It is not really limited by putting forth in itself a cosmos of relations. Note that he's saying the cosmos is created out of him, but it is created in himself. Okay, note that in itself, not outside itself, because he's the only thing that exists. There is nothing which is outside him. Okay, it's an important concept. The absolute is not really limited by putting forth in itself a cosmos of relations. Relations as opposed to the absolute. It is a natural play of its absolute being, consciousness, force, and self-delight. Note the words: being, Sat; consciousness, Chit; force, Shakti; self-delight, Anand. So, Satchidananda has got the power to create relations within itself. It's a power. It's not a loss of consciousness. It's not loss of Ananda. It's a power to reduce itself. That's what's saying. And naturally, very naturally, it is there. It's an inherent capacity of the Satchidananda to do that. The infinite is not limited by building up in itself again. Note the word in itself. An infinite series of interplaying finite phenomena. So, interplaying. So, very interesting what he's saying. The infinite is creating finite levels. Okay? The infinite is creating finite levels. It creates our mind, which is slightly limited. Then it creates the intuitive mind. It is slightly even less. Then element mind, and finally the higher mind. And then you come down to the lower hemisphere. You have mind, more limited, life, even more limited, and finally matter, which is most limited. Actually, even in matter, it is not most limited. It goes down right into the inconscient, where the self-hiding is almost complete. It is never complete, because if it was complete, then you could not rise up. So, darkness is 99.9% in the inconscient, but there is a 0.01% of light also which is there. And it is that light which is divine, which forces you to evolve upwards. That's what he's saying. But he's saying also, he's using the word interplane. In other words, all these planes of consciousness are not like a staircase, exclusive of each other. They are not. They are all interplane. They move into one another like the rainbow colors. Okay? They merge one into the other, more like a ramp. Okay? There is no clear difference between each plane. It's a natural development of rather. So he's saying it's the infinite is not reducing itself into a finite. It's a building up of itself into is a natural self-expression. The infinite has the capacity to express itself in finites. That's it. The one becoming the many. The one divine soul becoming the infinite number of souls. First of all, in inanimate creatures, souls. Then in animate creatures, souls. Then in human souls. And finally, you have yogic souls. And finally, avatars. All these are the interplaying planes, and they are all connected. The one is not limited by its capacity for multiplicity. The one has got the. Why is Srimati saying all this? Because there are many who say the opposite. Okay? If you get stuck in the lower levels, you will say the opposite. Oh, Spirit and matter are absolutely opposites. Okay, light and darkness cannot be compatible with each other. That's why Srinath is going on stressing this aspect again and again. This is a feature of his philosophy, that spirit and matter are really the same in different forms, just like ice, water, water vapor. Essentially the same, but taking different forms. It's a philosophy that gives tremendous positive aspects, because there are many philosophies which are very negative. Mayavada, Buddhism, they say that the physical world is permanently evil. Even the other religions also say that. So that is very negative. But if Srinath's philosophy is something very, very positive. It gives you the, in fact, this was the criticism of the Europeans, philosophers in Indian Advaita. Okay? They used to say that your philosophy is very negative. You are saying that the world is unreal and there is no chance of perfection here. So they used to criticize that. But here is Srinath coming and saying, no, it's not like that. It can become perfect, but it's only going to become perfect in grades and slowly. Okay? But it's not unreal, and this permanent, this suffering and darkness and ignorance is not permanent. It is slowly changing. Okay? So it's a very positive philosophy. The one is not limited by its capacity for multiplicity, in which it enjoys variously its own being. Now note that. Okay? When it is becoming the many, it is enjoying what it is creating. It creates the multiplicity and enjoys what it is doing. Variously in its own being. Rather, that is part of the true description of the infinite, as opposed to a rigid, finite, and conceptual unity. Okay? This unity that is saying is very, very flexible. It can create the finites, but not lose its infiniteness. Again, we come back to the famous 4 lines of Blake. Huh? The finite and the infinite are involved in each other. To see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven, to see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Okay? Both are different facets of the same reality. Okay? So now I go to the next sentence. Next sentence is in the next page. So too the ignorance. So what we are saying now applies to ignorance and knowledge also. Okay? So considered as a power of manifoldly self-absorbed and self-limiting concentration of the conscious being. So ignorance is the power of the knowledge to limit itself and see itself as many, and not start becoming sad, but enjoying what is being created. Seeing the many, it enjoys. Is a natural capacity of variation in his self-conscious knowledge. One of the possible poises of relation of the absolute in the manifestation of the infinite in a series of finite workings. Series of finite workings, the interplay of the relation that he has told you earlier. A series of finite workings. The core mind, intuitive mind, element mind, and higher mind. All these are all different levels, grade, variations of the absolute manifestation of the infinite finite workings of the one in its self-enjoyment in the many. So this enjoyment is there even in the physical world. You can enjoy. But how can you enjoy? Because you are suffering all the time. Become absolutely immune to the touches of the physical world, develop samatha. Okay? And if you develop samatha and equality without attraction and repulsion, then you will start enjoying everything. So ananda is there, but we are always choosing with our own will. That's the whole problem. So if you don't exercise your will and you look very calmly at success and failure, pleasant and unpleasant, then you will be able to enjoy everything. That's what she is. The power by the self-absorption to become unaware of the world, that's the ignorance. Huh? This whole thing is only, we can replace with one word. The power by self-absorption to become unaware of the world, okay? This is not ignorance, this is the knowledge, which yet at the same time continues in the being, is one extreme of this capacity of consciousness. So consciousness can limit itself and become almost zero. It can also expand itself and become almost infinite at the higher level. The power of absorption in the cosmic workings to become ignorant of the self, which all the time is carrying on those workings, is a reverse extreme. So they are reverse, obverse and reverse of the same reality. A coin has got two sides, the right side and the left side, rather the front and the back. Okay, so exactly in the same way, this is also there. But neither really limits the integral self-aware existence of Satchidananda, which is superior to these apparent oppositions. Even in their opposition, they help to express and manifest the inner fabric. This is the last para. We have got 8 minutes. I am reading out the summary and then we'll go on to the next one and see what he's going to say. Okay, so this para, I'm saying, let us recapitulate. Okay, it's the last paragraph of the chapter, and the chapter is exclusive concentration to explain what is the ignorance in life. So, I have said, let us recapitulate. Number one, the absolute does not really limit itself by creating relations within itself. When the absolute becomes, the one becomes the many, it is not limiting itself. It is its natural ability to play with the many. Number two, all the points we are summarizing. Number two, the infinite does not cease to be infinite by creating finite phenomena and fixed forms. It continues to retain its power of the infinite when making finite forms. Third, the one remains itself even while enjoying relations with the many. So, if this truth is there, then the Advaita philosophy becomes, the Vishishta Advaita becomes possible. You can have a relation with the divine and yet you can become the divine. Okay. Ramanuja. Okay. The true infinite and absolute are not rigid, fixed, subject to determinations and inflexible laws. They are not inflexible laws. So too, knowledge remains itself while limiting itself to the concentrated attention to details, which we call ignorance. So, the soul in ignorance has the power to go back to knowledge. That's what it is. The power of self-absorption into itself does not exclude the world of forms, nor does the consciousness dwelling on details of the many exclude the awareness of the one. So in the ignorance, there is a light. And in the light above, there is the possibility of the many, of the darkness being there. The power of Satchidananda to locate itself in either state is intrinsic to it. It has a free choice. It has a freedom to become light, and it also has a freedom to become the darkness. The power of the Satchidananda to locate itself in either state is intrinsic to it. Satchidananda can situate itself in any one poise without ever really losing the other. This is what he is saying. Okay. So now, but he has told us in the para that although what I am saying is true, it is true that there is no suffering and no limitation and no ignorance in the higher. But there is ignorance and suffering in the lower. Okay. It's a consequence of the, it's not fundamental, but it is a consequence. It's a result of the plunging into the darkness. So, where is the origin? Where is it starting? This is the next paragraph, the next chapter. The origin and remedy of, he has told you that it can be remedied. So, he is going to review that. The origin and remedy of falsehood, error, wrong, and evil. He has already given us a hint that it starts at the overmind level. The overmind, the one starts becoming the many. Infinite number of possibilities for the many is there, and that is starting at the highest level. Okay. So, below the overmind, there are so many planes which are there: intuitive mind, element mind, higher mind. And when a yogi reaches those planes, he sees the physical world as unreal, and he thinks that the error, falsehood, wrong, and evil are permanent in the physical world. They are not permanent. That's what so means. So, this is the next chapter. The origin and remedy of falsehood, error, wrong, and evil. Where does all these things come in? He will tell. It's quite a chapter. We'll have to do that. We'll take it up next time. So, because it's 8:37, there were only 3 minutes, not worth reading. Or we can read the quotation. There are plenty of quotations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quotations. So 3 minutes. Can we read? Maybe not much. Okay, we'll leave it for next time. All right?
Yes, Ragada.
Yeah. Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Thank you, Ragada.
Tomorrow we go back to
Synthesis.
go back to synthesis. Right.
Thank you, Raghunath.
Okay.